And welcome back to the Fast Performance Baseball Podcast. I'm your host, Cole Thomas, with my co-host,
Connor Reynolds.
Connor. I've heard you told me you had an interesting week we talked about outside of the podcast room. You want to elaborate on the week you've had?
Yeah, man. Definitely thought it was going to be one that wasn't as thrilling, and I was definitely wrong about that. So we got a new hitter that came in last week. First week was started on Monday. And so now we're hitting early AMs. Early AMs for me are 9 in the morning. Normally we're here till like 8, 9, 10 at night. So getting a long day in, but love every second of it. So wasn't necessarily anticipating that, but that's been a lot of fun. Really kind of expanding my boundaries. So having a lot of fun with that. And then also ended up having moved my office.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
So
you scared a lot of people with that Instagram post.
Yeah. A little cryptic message in there. I just moved so much within the last couple years. It was honestly par for the course if I actually was, but just moved it up 10 feet up to the north. Now I'm on the second floor.
You're moving up in the world.
Yeah, I almost got a window view.
You need to elaborate more. Is you put on your Instagram story, you said, move it again for whatever. And how many people texted you?
I had 9 people message me about that first one. And then I had probably 4 or 5 people message me individually.
Right.
About right after that.
Everyone was just like, what's going on? We actually had Jason told me that Nick Childs texted him and said, did you fire Connor? Because he saw your story. It's like, no, he's moving up in the world. He's moving up to the second floor.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. Now I'm closer to you guys, so we have some fun shenanigans going on. I think Jason's found the right spot on the hallway wall of how to ricochet a tennis ball from your guys' office into my office. So we've been having fun with that. So excited to be up here, get my own space. So that way I don't have pitchers or anything walking through to go do their arm care and stuff like that. So that's nice.
Now that space downstairs can turn into whatever we want it to be here in the future. If we want people to occupy it, or if we're just going to turn it into a kind of a storage area for the athletes when they come in, especially now that with the weather changing and the temperatures going down, people bring in more coats or they'll bring in their bags. We'll just leave it in that room. And then it keeps the main space cleaned up.
Brought in 12 lockers, I think.
Yeah, there's 12 new lockers, which would be cool. Be nice for people to store their stuff. So you were telling me about a thing on Facebook this week. What was this all about?
Yeah, man. So I was going through, just scrolling, and it's one of those that we've talked about it a lot, and it's one of those things where it was the right time, right situation for me. So I was scrolling through. I noticed someone put out onto the Colorado Baseball Network. They said, looking for an assistant coach to help with the freshman or sophomore program at a local high school. I have 30 years of coaching high school, played college and pro ball. Need individuals that believe in old school baseball and will help give kids a comfortable environment to learn and to learn the game and have fun doing it. So I responded to that saying, when is the date cutoff for old school versus new school, and is there a definition for either of those? That kind of sparked up. We had a good little going back and forth in there. That's kind of been the thing that I think we've talked about a lot of the time is I honestly really don't feel like there is any difference in old school and new school, except for one, why or how you've gotten to a conclusion, or two, how you prove a theory. So back in the day, it was one of those where they'd go through and it was a lot of feel. They weren't able to verify anything. Whereas now we're able to go through, we can use hit tracks, we can use Rapsodo, we can use TrackMan, we can use Blast Motion Capture Labs, KVS, all of these different tools allow us to actually verify and say, does this help? Does this not? All that good stuff. And so for me, actually having someone that is, quote, looking for old school coaching, I was like, this is a perfect opportunity to get an answer or definition of what the hell that actually means. Because I feel like it's one of those where it's overused or overthrown onto stuff. It's really easy to just slap it on as old school and new school, but what does that mean? And the answer that I got is the answer I was pretty much anticipating. The answer is, if you do not know, you never will.
What great way to elaborate on your point.
So it's like, all right, like I think that just proves exactly what I was saying. Like no one can actually say what it is or what it isn't. I responded with saying, sounds like a good learning environment. He came back with saying that he has been doing it for over 30 years and had great results. I responded with saying, I've seen people drive cars for 30 plus years and they still suck at driving. I would say it intrigues me that you listed that you wanted an old school coach before you listed that you want someone who works well with players. I'll keep searching for someone who can actually explain the difference between old school and new school. To think a program would say no to a coach who may be the best fit for the players time wise and the strengths to your weaknesses as a head coach, just simply because they're labeled as new school. That is just disappointing. Once we got there, though, he gave an attempted definition. And this is one of those where I think it's, if you were to ask any coach if this is who they are, or what they want, I think every coach in the country would say yes. So his response is an old school is an attitude and an approach. We provide players with a comfortable environment to learn the game, no drama, no politics, just an empathetic and positive culture that they can thrive in. Good luck with your research. So I responded saying, if that's the definition, then I'm an old school coach.
Right.
Like, I don't feel like there's any coach that's going to go through and disagree with saying that they don't want, like, nobody wants politics in their program. No one wants drama. Everyone wants to have good learning environment for the players to where they can be comfortable. If that's what the definition of an old school coach is, why would you want to be a new school coach?
Right. I feel there's a, how do I put, I feel like there's this like delineation between like what you were saying in that guy's first comment where he sticks the landing there, luckily.
Yep.
But he starts off like he sounds almost like an old school football coach where it's just like, we're going to run the ball with my fullback. I'm going to run the ball with my fullback. I'm going to run the ball with my fullback. And maybe I'll pass it on, third down and like 7+. Because otherwise, like throwing the ball is just like wussy stuff, right?
Yeah, we don't need that.
We run the ball because we're tough, we're hard nosed, we're
gritty.
Exactly, we're gritty. But he sticks the landing there where he's like, it's an empathetic thing. It's we're so I feel that there's too many old school, quote unquote old school coaches, I'll say, that they hate what we do because it feels like, I think it makes them feel like we're attacking all the methods that have worked in the past, where we're not trying to do that. And I hope this is one of those, like, I don't know how many times we have to hit it over the head. We're not trying to discredit you, but we're trying to validate things that work versus validate things that don't work.
If the shoe fits, then the shoe fits.
Exactly. Like, if we're, if you've got a specific drill that you've been using for decades, we want to make sure, hey, is this the most efficient drill to fix the problem that you're trying to make it fix? Right. When I was in college, we did a lot of towel drills, and I can't stand, and for me personally, I don't like the towel drill because I don't think it enforces the right mechanics. It forces the right movement patterns, right? Because it's like, you've seen guys do towel drills when you were in college, I imagine, where they'll go into the bullpen, you put like a chair out like 6 or 7 feet in front of the mound, and the whole goal is just get your towel and just try to whip the seat of the chair.
Yep.
But if you watch a pitcher do it, it just doesn't look like a movement that is efficient. Doesn't look like a natural motion. Most guys, it looks to me at least, when they do a towel drill, that release point is going to be a ball that's thrown 5 feet in front of home plate, 10 feet in front of home plate. Maybe it's a great drill for a cricket bowler or something like that, but we're not trying to play cricket here. We don't live in India. We don't live in Australia or all those, Commonwealth nations that the UK used to own, right? We don't play those sports. And, if you throw a ball 5 feet in front of the home plate, you're not going to be a very successful pitcher. So in my opinion, at least, the towel drill is not an efficient way to teach a kid to get into extension on their release. Same thing goes for, drills like, towel drill is the main one. Where like some drills that maybe you find it was always top and now like is very useless, do you feel like?
So I think, and it'll run into our main topic, but I think it's one of those where I feel like any drill can be useful if one used in the proper fashion for the athlete that they're needing to work with. So like maybe tower drill could work for someone that they only throw baseballs over the backstop.
Right.
Like maybe finding that happy medium, but how many pitchers are out there that are actually doing that? Where on the hitting side, it's the same idea. I've seen one. It's been thrown around a lot of the time. The Barry Bonds drill that there's been a video of Barry Bonds working with Christian Yelich when Christian was with the Marlins and Bonds was the hitting coach. So the drill is to where when you go to swing, you want to hit the ball to where it literally goes straight down and hits the plate.
Mm.
The idea behind it, though, is to where you're able to control your barrel to where you are so accurate with your barrel that you can essentially hit the little, I don't know, quarter-inch part of the ball. You're still swinging hard. You're not changing your swing. You're not swinging down to create that result. You are just swinging to where you're able to control to where you're hitting barely the top of the ball, and then it results in the ball going down. You're not forcing the ball to go down. And so that video went around, and I saw a bunch of players doing it. I saw a bunch of coaches doing it. But the way that they're doing is they're literally swinging straight down rather than accomplishing or doing what Bonds or Yelich were talking about in that drill. And so, like, I mean, that's a great one where it's like, all right, like, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And finding maybe one athlete out of 50 that could work for, but the other 49 it's just going to fuck up their swing.
Right.
Same thing with a towel drill. Maybe one out of every 50 pitchers maybe could benefit that, and not having it be a main drill, but having it be a drill that they can do. Maybe one of those 50 it could help, but the other 49 is just going to fuck up everything else. And the difference, in my opinion, is that old school would be, well, if I did it or if so and so did it and Timmy can do it, then you can do it and you should do it. And so their reason for them doing some of these drills is not because they've gone through, they looked at this kid's swing or looked at this kid's numbers and like, all right, so this player is faulty in this part of their swing or this part in their throwing motion or this or that. This is a drill that will fix that. Boom, let's do that. They're not doing that. They're doing, all right, time to do our Barry Bonds drill, and everyone goes through it. Everyone does it, and it'll ruin, majority of the kids' swings. One kid it might click, and then that's the one kid that coach uses as an example. He's, all right, come on up. You guys see how little Billy over here was able to do that drill? I don't get why most of you guys just aren't trying hard enough. I guess Billy tried really hard, and Billy was able to do it. Look how good Billy is. It's like, all right, well, Billy also normally swings straight up in the cage, so this extreme opposite of that helped find him a middle in his swing.
Right.
No wonder Billy's doing better now. Whereas everyone else who had a normal good swing, now it's just ruined it. And it's like, all right, well, they're not using data. They're not using anything to verify or say we should be doing this. It's more of a, well, I think we should do this.
Right.
And there's the big difference in my opinion.
Yeah. I think there's an interesting argument to be made. Like what you're saying, and this will go into our main topic today, so I don't want to elaborate on much further, but understanding utilizing different drills or what we used to verify these things. And sometimes I feel like when people say they're old school, it's almost anti-technology or anti things, anti-data, anti-technology, anti this or that. It's that mentality of, I can see it with my own two eyes. Why would I need to verify it? My two eyes are the verifiers, right? And there's some aspect to that can be true, but I think there's this new school region, and where we primarily drive into is, I want to make sure I'm right. I want to make sure that I'm doing a thing with this athlete or this kid that's putting him in the positions that he needs to be the most successful, right? What you define as maybe, say like in a biomechanics situation, right? You can see what good biomechanics look like, right? The hips fly open before while the shoulders stay closed, our arms in the right spot, how fast is everything moving? But I want to make sure I have like hard numbers to prove that what I'm seeing is right. And I think that's kind of like where we see into this like scientific point is, science can only go so far. If we just decide, gravity is this, and there's no other way that gravity can be influenced. Like, okay, well then we've stopped learning as people, as humanity. It's the same way with coaches. I feel like there's too many coaches in the world who I learned something back in 1993. This coach taught me this one thing, and everything that coach taught me it's basically just been my dogma.
Yep.
And you essentially stop being a coach when you stop learning, right? And that's where I feel like that there's this progression of where baseball is going, and baseball's not slowing down. It's going further and further into this, whether you like it or not. It's gonna, and I mean, there might be some reversion because I think there's going to be some people who just, I can't do this. There's too many data points that I can't handle it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not going to say like an old school dogma or a frame of mind can't be successful. There are many successful coaches who have an old school mentality, and still win a lot of games. But it's going to get to a point fairly soon where athletes are smarter than the coaches, and athletes are smarter than the organizations they play for if they're in professional ball. They're going to be smarter than their college coaches. And for me, at least, I see it as like I need to always be one step ahead of my athletes. With the internet age now, I can look up anything I want. Any kid can look up a drill and maybe ask me, hey, what do you think about this drill? It's like I need to make sure I have a base understanding of what some other facility or some other training program has. That way, when someone asks me about it, I can give them a smart, logical answer. Right. I can't just be like kind of locked into my own little bubble here, and everything only I'm interested in is what's important. Everything outside of here is useless. It's not real. It's fake. It's gonna hurt you. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your money.
Well, it's ignorance, I think, to a certain degree, because I mean, and this goes for hitting Twitter, this goes for pitching Twitter. Essentially, if we see a good swing, whether you're old school and new school, if you see a good throw, like we're both going to look at each other and go like, that was good.
Yeah.
I think the difference comes when it is, how you said, they use their eyes for that verification, where I can too, like you can too. The difference is for me, and especially with, I feel it, I'll speak for myself on this. If you want to jump in on it, go for it. I mean, I've been coaching for the last 4 years trying to get my players recruited.
Yeah.
I knew of some coaches, but I didn't build any relationships really as a coach to coach because of where I was at. And so for me, I didn't have the ability to just call up, college ABCA and go, oh, hey, by the way, I've got this kid. He throws it hard. He's got the goods.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, okay, like, what is that? How hard does he throw? I don't know. It just looks good. So yeah, you guys definitely should, fly out here to come check him out or
right.
do they like, I don't have that ability. And so what would happen is I would take my pocket radar out, take my camera out, video the kid throwing. Once I now go to college ABCA or whatever it is, they're like, all right, like, we don't know who you are, so we don't have anything to trust you on, but do you have video? Oh yeah, I have video of this kid throwing on a pocket radar at a bullpen, or I have a pocket radar. We pocket radared every single pitch that our kids threw in game. So we can take that and send it to them. And now there's no question of if I'm lying, if like, what are my motives as a coach? Am I trying to get this player into your program so that way I can say like, oh, I've sent players to this school. There's no question. There's no, it's verified. This kid throws it like this. That's it. No, it's black and white. There is no like, you should just trust me. And same thing goes for the player. Having guys down here, I've been able to tell if a kid hits a ball hard or not. But there have been times where a kid will go through, he'll hit one, and he's like slamming his bat. He's like, oh man. And I've like looked at a kid and go, you realize you just hit a PR? I'm like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, like the feeling that we're creating doesn't feel normal or natural right away. So you felt like you mishit that. Actually, here, come look at this. Or same thing if they're, struggling a little bit or whatever it is. Like I can take that and I can show the parent, I can show the player, like I can verify that we're getting your kid better rather than just saying, yeah, the bat sounds louder to me. So that means that we're doing better.
Right.
We can verify this data. We can verify this information. And there's a big difference in that, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I think we've talked about this before, but it's like what I feel a lot of old school coaches may not get is there. It's almost like there's a difference in just like baseball strategy as well. Is the in new school the stigma basically is like new school coaches are anti bunting or we're anti just throw strikes or anti hit your spots, and so it's like now it's like for on the pitching side it's just all velo, right? That's what everyone likes to assume it is, right? On the hitting side it's like just swing for the fences, go for doubles, home runs, small ball no longer applies. And it's like, well, the reason we do that is we see what these numbers give us. Like the harder you throw, the better pitcher you usually are, the harder you are to hit. The more you swing for fences and the more you swing for try to get doubles and home runs and all that, the more runs you end up putting up, right? But doesn't mean like for you as a coach, doesn't mean like you're not bunt averse, right?
So to bring on to what you just said is I 100% agree that new school finger air quotes new school coaches are more into the velo side, less bunting, less this, less that. Now the thing is I literally just pulled this up. So if you have a coach that essentially is saying like you have to hit your spots, that's the only way you're going to be successful. Jerry Weinstein has a book called Coaching Catchers.
Oh, good book.
You like that? He states that major league pitchers only hit their target 24% of the time with their fastballs. A miss is when a catcher has to move his glove 6 inches or more to catch the pitch. So, like saying that the best pitchers, and this was done back in 2014.
Well, the average miss in Major League Baseball is by about like
it's like
8 to 12 inches.
Yeah,
8 to 12 inches. So you're missing by at least a foot.
And so, and that's current, whereas this was back in 2014. So this is before all of the, drive line stuff was been like truly implemented from the base up.
Right.
So this is going to what I think is saying that your goal may be to try and hit your spot over and over and over again. The actuality of that happening is extremely low. So how good can we be when we miss over the heart of the plate? If you're missing over the heart of the plate and you're going to dog shit velo, it's going to get sent. If you miss over the heart of the plate, but you have some velo, if you have some movement on it, that's going to help you out. That's going to be a plus or a bonus. Like how good can you be when you're not very good?
Right.
If you're able to throw hard and hit your spot, that's a double plus. If you're able to throw hard and be around your spots, that's a plus. And so like we've looked at the data, we've been doing baseball for so long, we've been able to look at the trends and what actually happens. And I feel like there's been a lot of kind of realization of like, oh, we don't need to do that. Like the idea of bunting, like I need to pull up the stat, but I have it somewhere in my head. It's close to like the amount of times that you actually bunt a guy over and it's actually successful is extremely low.
Right.
Now, in specific or certain situations, yeah, I'm not going to say don't do it. If you asked any of my players that played for me, we bunted a shit ton.
Yeah.
And I'm a new school, air quotes again for people just listening. I'm a new school coach. We bunted a lot. We played a lot of small ball. And that is not saying that it's not needed in the game, but to think like every single time a runner gets on first with no outs that you're bunting, like that is a dead thought. And that is more of a rally killer in my head than a home run is.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never understood that a home run's a rally killer.
Yeah. The Phillies.
It's like if you hit a home run, I feel like the rest of your team's going to be pumped, right? And now you're going to feel better.
Nah, dude. Rally killer.
Yeah. And
you're bad if you hit home runs.
And it's, don't get me like on the bunting side, like don't get me wrong, there are times and places to bunt where it is effective, but automatically bunting a guy over when he gets to first base, if there's less than 2 outs, just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And especially now in like you see it in games all the time, like how many guys are actually really good at bunting? Not very.
and it's not, I don't think solely because I can hear people already in the comments. It's because they don't practice it anymore.
Right.
Go watch a spring training game.
Oh yeah.
Go watch a spring training game. Actually, Weinstein, I believe he's the catching coach for the Rockies. Minor league.
He's the catching coordinator.
They had put out, I want to say like 2-3 months ago in the middle of the season, their guys just sitting there bunting.
Yeah.
Like it is still practiced. It is still used. Like in pretty much every organization that I can think of, it is still a common thing to have bunting be a part of their practice. It's just, it still doesn't make it more successful.
It's one, like I get annoyed by it as a high school coach too. Like we're almost obligated to do it because it's doing like bunting practice and spending like 30 minutes on bunting practice where I could be spending way better use, it'd be a way better use of my time if I did some more bullpens with some pitchers, or we did some actual, like, maybe some base running, keep working on the things that are going to get us an advantage. It's like, I don't know how many times I've as a player and as a coach, I've run through the fucking wheel drill or the wheel play. And I've seen the wheel play work one time. I've in my playing career and my coaching career, I've seen the wheel play work one time.
Yeah.
And it was unintentionally. It unintentionally worked because the guy on second base was a moron. And that's all it was. And so, like, we were we had an intern when I was coaching a couple years ago, and we both just like, the wheel play never works because either the bunt's too good, or you make a bad play, or the catcher or the guy on second base just gets a good enough lead, right? And once you get saying, the guy was like, because you don't practice it right, or whatever. I'm like, but like, seriously, have you ever seen a wheel play work?
Rarely.
Yes. Rarely. It's just like, why don't I just let you bunt? I'll get an out. Thank you for the free out, and then I'll just go strike out the next two guys.
There we go.
And it's like, I'll take my chances.
Yeah, it's, I don't know, and I think that's where it goes into us looking at the data or the information and making an educated, decision of, all right, when we're in this situation, runner on first, no outs, like, if we bunt this guy over, we get an out. Okay. Do we eliminate the double play? Yes. But now we have just 2 outs to score that guy from second versus 3 to score him from first. It's like 80% of the time, like, that runner won't score.
Right.
Something like that. So it's like, all right, we've looked at it and it's like, is that something we want to say every single time we're in the situation? We're going to do this? No, that doesn't make sense. That is, I feel like, a poor coaching decision. Now, if you're in that situation, you're down by 1 run in the bottom of the 7th, and you've got your like 9-hole up. Yeah, bunt him, bunt him over. That makes a lot of sense.
I would like my chances of my top of the order with that guy on second base.
Exactly, and so it's like little things like that where it's like, we're not saying it doesn't make sense to do those things. We're saying there has to be the right situation to do those.
There's to be the right context. Just jumping immediately to, I need to do this.
And in my opinion, that is, if we were to go through new school versus old school, I personally think old school makes decisions based on prior experience, where new school will make decisions based on actual, substance.
Right. Like, moving on to the main topic of the episode, I wanted to talk about individualization. And I feel like individualization is a kind of a bastardized word at this point, in the same way that, we can, in our hot political climate these days, but, everything. So, if you say something so many times, at one point, does it start losing meaning? So I feel like we see a lot of times coaches or facilities or programs will always tell an athlete or whoever their potential client, athlete, parent, whatever, what have you, is, we offer you an individualized training program. This program is going to be specific to you. It's going to be, down to the minute details, which very rarely, and this is kind of, we're calling ourselves out for this, right? We say it all the time. It's a marketing tool. It's, we're going to give you an individualized program, but at what extent is it actually individualized? Very rarely is it down to the minute details, tailored to you.
Right.
Individualization, there's like individualization, but there's not individualization, right? Very rarely do we see kids who are absolute unicorns in pitching or in hitting, right? We see a lot of similarities between kid to kid. And as a coach or as a trainer, we see it as, all right, this kid's got this issue. Here are my list of drills that will address this issue that he has, right? We're always looking to find the lowest hanging fruit and hit those things the fastest, get those things, done the quickest. And then we start moving up the chain where, by different definitions, that might not be an individualized program, because a kid will walk in, get his program, and another kid right next to him is doing the exact same program. It's like, well, you guys have the exact same issues, but it is individualized towards you, the specific athlete.
Mm-hmm. I think the idea of individualization is one of those where, depending on what your definition is, that is whether like we are an individualized program or we are a kind of blanket cookie cutter program. So I think if you're looking at it as, like you said, not every little tiny thing is going to be straight directed for you. But if you have an athlete, let's say on the hitting side, where they lunge too much, okay, well, they may be lunging too much, but then they may also have other issues within the swing. But the main like low hanging fruit is going to be that they lunge too much. So
Right.
we're going to put them on our program to where they're not going to lunge as much. That's going to be a problem for a lot of amateur high school hitters. And so does that mean that it's individualized straight for them? No, but with their lunging, they may need this program, and maybe they cast a little bit or they barrel dump. So then they get this program, and then maybe they are low on their hip mobility. So then they're going to get this program. Maybe they're underweight, so they're going to get this program. Maybe they need to work on, I don't know, their T-spine mobility. Now they're going to get this program. Well, there's 6 or 7 different programs for that athlete. The odds of another athlete having all of the same 6 or 7 programs, extremely low.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if you go into the lunging portion and they're standing next to somebody else that has a lunging problem, they're like, well, this drill's not just for me. It's like, no. But when you step out and you look at the entirety of everything that you're doing, we built this program for you because you have an issue here, 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 and here. And all of these things are addressing those issues that you have. So yes, it's individualized for you, but when you look it down to the individual drill, you're going to be doing a drill that a lot of other people are doing as well.
I think I think parents fall into the trap that and it's what we try to tell. I think we do a good job of telling people, but it's reinforcing the issue is your kid is not as special as you think he is.
Yeah.
And I don't say that in a mean way.
No.
But a lot of guys, especially on the pitching side and the hitting side, is a lot of guys have a lot of the same issues as I mentioned earlier. I can't tell you when we do our movement screen for pitchers on their first day or when we retest them, how many times so many kids can't anteriorly and posteriorly tilt their pelvis, right? And for guys who aren't watching this on the YouTube or don't know what pelvic tilt is, just think of what twerking is. The easiest way to think of it is like when you see a girl in a rap video like shaking her butt and all that. That's pelvic tilting.
There we go.
It's a very important movement,
bonk.
Actually. I know, bonk, right? I know but it's a very important movement in the pitching side because if you can't, you don't have any mobility or stability in your pelvis. The pelvis and the hips are one of the biggest drivers of athletic movement, and if you are dysfunctional there, you're gonna have a very tough time developing power. And if you can't develop power, it's very tough to develop velocity on the pitching side, right? So I give a lot of guys the same pelvic tilt correctives all the time. They go like, oh, this is my individual warm-up. It's like, yeah, because this is what you struggle with. So we're trying to correct these issues you have, right? But player B, like player A's got pelvic tilt issues, player B has pelvic tilt issues. They're going to usually do the same correctives to adjust those things. But then you bring in player C, who maybe has a late arm action, who's got maybe some pec tightness. Now he's going to go do his own pec. He's going to do his shoulder, and he's going to do pec correctives to get his arm back up. He's going to mobilize to get his arm on time, right? One player might not have the same issues as the other player, or the low hanging fruit changes, or they're dependent on one another. But if two players have the same low hanging fruit, we're going to make sure we address those things. It always depends on level of importance as well.
100%.
Like if a kid has a late arm action, but he also has early extension, I want to fix his arm action before I fix his extension, right? If a kid, and vice versa, if a kid's got his arm action is good, it could be better. I still want to make sure I fix that early extension as well. But as well as the problem with individualization is I feel like as I mentioned earlier when we started this, is I feel it's become such a bastardized term that now everyone kind of uses it as a market. It's more of a marketing word than it actually is a has specific value.
That and player development.
Yeah, that and player development is like, we're the best player development facility. We're the best individualization facility. And don't get me wrong, like, this is a brag on us. Like, we're just like, we do feel like we are the best at what we do in this state. Don't get me wrong. But it's one you see it on Facebook all the time, or on Twitter all the time, where Twitter and Facebook has all become kind of just this big dick measuring contest where, I've been in fights on or arguments on Facebook where I talk to a coach about, we have the best evaluation in the state. And this guy goes like, well, you'll just do the evaluation and then just give them a cookie cutter program. And like, okay, well, what would you do? It's like, well, we do this. And I'm like, you do the exact same thing I do. Literally the exact same thing. So I don't understand what's this, like, we individualize better than that facility, or we do this better than that place, or, that's where it's just become such a bastardized word that I'm like, I hate the word individualization, because at a true extent there is individualization, but it's not to the extent you think it is.
And that's where I think the definition, like what you're looking for, is really important. And so I like to imagine or view the individualization for a player in development to be very similar to their college experience. So if you go through and you look at, there are different majors, there are different minors, there are different classes for each major, there are different classes for every minor. If you go through and you say, like, so I was a business major with a minor in international business. So if you look at to where you just go through and you say, all right, am I getting an individualized education by going and being a business major or a business management major with a minor in international business? Yes, to an extent. Like, that is, I chose that, and I'm going to pick classes that I am going to go through for those two. But does that mean that is just strictly only for me? Am I going to be the only student in all of these classes? Am I going to be the only one that has ever gone through this section of classes? No, there's been a lot of other people that have done the same thing, or they're going to be in your classes. But the same people that are in your, major class may not be in your minor class. The guys that are in your minor class may not be in your major class. The ones that are in both of those, they have similar programs to you. Now, if you were to go through and also throw in like what hall you live in, like that, those are adding, the more filters we add, the more individualized it does become. And that's the difference, I think, where if you're looking at just one drill or just one class or just one specific spot of the player development program, it's not going to look as individualized. But if you look over a whole grand of an entire, winter workout session, or if you go through an entire semester, an entire 4 years of college, or whatever it is, then you're going to go, oh, no one else did this, then this, then this, then this, then this, then this, like I did. Were there people in those classes? Yes, but they didn't do it the way that I did it because it was individualized for me.
I like your analogy there. I thought about this when you and I talked about this before, that college analogy is like, but always bear in mind, like, when you go to college, do you go straight into your specialization, or you do the basic things first, right? And I feel that's what people don't understand. Like, it's the who was it? There's a really good, I think it was Eric Cressy had talked about it on one of his podcasts, or he tweeted about it, where he had a parent come in. And Eric Cressy, for people who don't know, he's the head strength and condition. He's the head of human performance for the Yankees now, but he has a place down in basically like the Boston area, and down Cressy Sports Performance. And he's trained like Noah Syndergaard, Corey Kluber. He's got a lot of professional guys that worked under him, pretty big names. And I think it was him that came in. A parent came in for like a 13-year-old and just goes like, just put my kid on Corey Kluber's, lifting program. Just whatever you have Corey do, let my kid do it. And you sit there and you go like, well, that 13-year-old is not Cy Young Award winner, multi-time All-Star Corey Kluber, right? So I feel some parents parents and athletes need to understand, like, if you're brand new to this, like if you're brand new to fast, or you're brand new to any kind of pitching program, you need to make sure you hit the basics first before you start getting, and I feel like the higher you go into the game, that's when that specialization really, that real individualization starts. But I think people always come in with this expectation that here's my individualized program, and it's going to be down to the T. It's going to fix all my smallest issues, right? But a lot of the smallest issues for 13-year-olds, 14-year-olds, 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, if you just fix the basic things like get in the weight room or do some just regular mobility or work on grooving more efficient movement patterns, you'll see success. And then the higher you go, then it becomes, okay, now once you've hit all those basic issues, now let's really start specializing on the one or two things that are really holding you back.
Oh yeah, and that's what individualization is, right? That is finding what the individual is needing and addressing that.
Right.
And if, like we've talked about in the past, if you can't do 2+2, we're not going to jump you up to pre-calc.
No.
We got to be able to do the basics. And when you're between the ages of 10 and honestly 18 probably, a lot of the time you have low-hanging fruit that needs to be addressed, just like everyone else probably in that same age.
Right. Well, and that's where I feel like some athletes will come in and they want that program. Like, you know, we've got a couple of pro guys in here, and they'll see them like, I want that pro guy's plan. I'm like, well, you're not that pro guy. You're not on the strength level as that pro guy. You don't move as well as that pro guy. You don't do this as well as the pro guy. We need to fix the basic thing first before we really start clicking on the minute details, right? Pro guys are in that realm where they know the basics and they know their body very well. That's what's fun about working with pro guys is you can tell a pro guy to do something and he can do it because he knows he's got enough body awareness. But there are too many middle school, high school, and I mean, don't even get me started on the elementary school kids, right? That just don't have that body awareness yet. And it's an unreasonable expectation for a parent or an athlete to go like, put me on that kid's program, on that guy's program, when you can't touch your toes, or you can't squat below parallel, or you can't turn your T-spine more than 45 degrees without your hips getting involved. You know, there's so many things that guys struggle with that like you said, we need to hit this low hanging fruit first before we start working on what angle is my wrist above my elbow at foot strike, how far am I really striding down to the most minute centimeter, how much separation am I getting. It's like we need to fix these big overarching things first before we really start locking in on like specific details.
The issues need to be relative, right?
Yeah.
So and it's one of those, I think, imagine you are cleaning a whiteboard. Right. I was actually just doing this over there. If you're looking at a whiteboard that's dirty, you're going to look at and you're going to be able to pick out the giant pieces that you need to erase first. Mm-hmm. Once you erase those, then you start seeing the little tiny markings that you didn't even really notice at first because you were just so caught up, like looking at the big, markers or whatever. Then once you start erasing the smaller ones, then a little bit more smaller ones appear. And then you go through, and I think that's essentially what, player development can be with individualization, is that if you have low hanging fruit, those are going to be the giant markings. Those are the first things that me as an instructor, that I see those right away. And it's like, yep, we can fix that. We can fix that. Once we erase those, we're peeling the onion, get into another layer. It's like, all right, well, now we fixed those, but we still have some stuff on this whiteboard. Let's erase those. All right, we fixed those. Now we still, there's a little marking over here. Let me erase that. I'm looking back. There's another marking over here. But it gets smaller. It gets more detailed the further you go. And so I think that's a piece that a lot of players can kind of ignore. And I mean, honestly, kids in general don't essentially get their full like motor skills or ability to understand their motorization until they're like 13, 14, 15 years old.
Right.
And so like to even think that we're needing to address little tiny knickknack things with a 12-year-old, that's ridiculous in my opinion.
Right. It's just a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm going to get, like, if you're a 13, 14, 15-year-old, I'm going to make sure you're very good at the most basic movement patterns. And you usually will be pretty successful if you do that. Yeah. And then the better you get at that, then we can tinker a little bit with it. And it's one of those things like, we're looking at the macro versus the micro. And I feel like too many people that come into us, they want us to focus on the micro stuff. parent will come and it's like, oh, Timmy sucks at throwing strike or stinks at throwing strikes and he doesn't throw very hard. It's like, can you do both those things? I'm like, all right, well, let me start with, let's do the throwing hard part.
Right.
Because if you can throw hard and you can throw with some control, you're going to be successful, especially in the high school game. But how can I get you to throw hard first? Or he stinks at this. He's like, well, he's got this issue, this issue, this issue, that issue. So the last thing I need to worry about is him throwing strikes. I need to make him a more efficient athlete and a more efficient thrower, and then the strikes will come after.
Well, and think of, let's say, I'll be little Timmy's parent. I got a 9-year-old and I'm coming to you.
Yeah.
And I'll let you know, I'm like, Timmy's just struggling to throw strikes. He's just not too sure about even where the ball's really going. Doesn't really have good command or velo. I need you to work on those things. So you take in little Timmy and look at him. Little Timmy's scared to throw the ball in general.
Right.
So the first thing that we're going to probably work on is, I don't know, maybe a little intent.
Yeah.
Maybe just getting them comfortable being able to go through and just throw a baseball without having any worry about failure, stuff like that. Now, is that immediately going to translate into throwing harder and throwing more strikes? Probably not. But that's where it's going to start. And if I'm just a parent and this is my first session, I'm expecting you to be able to fix him. I'm paying blank amount of money for this one session. You should be able to fix him after this one session.
Right.
It's like, no, like there's a progression to this. Like it's going to take many steps. Now, once we get through what are they called? The gen ed classes. Once we get through the general education classes, now we can start moving into a little bit more of the meatier pieces that individual athlete is needing and now is able to fix and actually work on, rather than trying to backtrack, go forward, backtrack, go forth.
Right. I like that. What your statement there is like, I pay for this one session and I expect you to fix everything. It's the same thing with guys who they come, maybe we have and it's dependent on the season, right? But we have like some packages that are like one time a week, and then that's the package, right? Like I can't do anything one time a week with your kid, depending on the age level and how much he has buy-in outside of here. I can give you a drill, and then the next day they come in like, what's that drill? Oh, I forgot that one. Like, well, what did you do outside of this? Nothing. Yep. Or I played games that I didn't actually focus on my drill work. And that this could be a whole nother segment for a whole nother show about my problems I have with like club baseball. But it's one of those things. Like I saw it on social media the other day, and this was something I was talking to you about outside of here, where we're so obsessed with this where individualization is somehow going to microwave our success. And this is something we talked about before on the Managing Expectations podcast. Go back and listen to that one. But we want to see our success so much quicker than it will actually come. So I saw a post from another facility that I'm not too enthusiastic about personally, but they brought in another organization, I'm not going to say the names and all that, but they brought in another organization like, oh, we want you to come out here this weekend and just look at our picture. I think it was a one-day thing. They evaluated 15, 20 guys that came in according to the pictures. And then we're going to give you an individualized throwing program, and obviously this facility is like, come check this out. It's so awesome, man. I can't wait. And I look at the pictures. I'm like, there's like 3 kids on there. I'm like, I know that kid. He used to come in here. Or he actually was coming in here like not too long ago. And so it's one of those like where, and this is one of the kids I couldn't stand because he just didn't know what he was doing. He had a thing where he would schedule appointments and then would cancel them the day of. He did that for 2 straight months. And then you're going to be the dad and you're going to get mad at me because your kid hasn't made any improvements. Like, well, dude, I haven't seen your kid in 2 months. You're buying packages that you're not utilizing. Yeah. So, and then he goes like, oh, well, we're going to go to this facility. And I'm like, all right, cool. I mean, if you follow that same regimen you were doing, you're going to get the exact same results. Yeah. So as well as where, and we've talked about this before, is like, I don't really care where you go, or like if you're a parent or a kid, like I don't care where you go, because the facility is only going to do so much, or the programming is only going to do so much. We're going to put you in the best position to be successful, but the magic and where we see that individualization, the magic will all come from how much that athlete puts into the process. Well, you can go to Rogue, you can go to Slammers, you can go to Elite, you can go to Prime, Chaos. I know those are the same things, but throw formats, all these guys we all know pretty well, and we respect what they do. You know, their program is not any more special than our programming is. I like to think it is, but I think it's one of the things we do. I believe we do better than they do, just from a personal standpoint. But I'm going to put you in the best position to be successful and put you on the best program to be successful. But if you as the athlete don't take advantage of it, or don't go that extra mile to do things for you, like make sure you sleep, make sure you lift, make sure you eat, make sure you are taking care of your body. That way, anytime you get dinged up or you're sore or whatever, you're taking care of yourself. Your level of results is just not going to be what you want it to be. And then you're going to be left thinking, well, that program wasn't as individualized to me as it could have been, but because you weren't taking care of the shit you could take care of.
100%. I think that's what it comes down to, is that you're going to get what you put into it. And just buying the package isn't, completing the package.
Right.
And there's a big difference in that. And, honestly, maybe that kid gets more out of going down and doing a 1-day camp, because he actually showed up to that 1-day camp, versus you, where he didn't show up for 2 months. So over a 2-month span, he came in 0 times to you. Over a 1-day span, he went 1 time over there. Maybe he gets more out of it, but the only reason he's getting more is because he actually went there more in 1 day versus you with 2 months.
Well, that's the thing, is like the throwing, or the way it was marketed, from what I understand, is like they're going to put you on a throwing program. And I know the way this organization does their programming, because I've had friends who've gone to that place, and like, here's what they do. It's like they'll just give you a sheet of paper, like, here's this progression you follow for this many months, and you'll see these results. But like, if you're just going to go there for 1 day, get a program, and if you don't do the program, was it really worth your goddamn time?
Or what happens if that was either your best day of your life throwing or your worst day of your life throwing? Maybe you sprained your ankle a couple days ago and you have a little less mobility in there. Maybe you slept wrong on your shoulder, and your shoulder was a little tight that day. So now you're getting a program designed for how you were that 1 day, where if you give it a couple weeks on that ankle or a couple days on the shoulder, you're going to be a completely different pitcher. And now you're going through the wrong program, because it originally was designed for an athlete that has lack of mobility in their shoulder or their ankle, where now you don't have that issue. But it's not because the program fixed you. It's because just over time fixed you. And so if you're going through and doing a one-time stamp, that's pretty tough in my opinion, because how long is that program going to be for? If that's a 2-month program, now you're going to be going through, if you're actually putting in the work, the energy, and the effort into it, you're still going to get something out of it. I saw a study where it was like, even if you do the wrong movements when it comes to like running or shooting a basketball or throwing or hitting, if you practice the wrong movements more than someone doesn't practice the right movements, you're still going to have times where you're going to be more successful, because you just have been able to repeat and inherently go over the muscle memory of something.
Right.
You're probably going to be more confident because you've had more reps out of it. Does that mean that you're doing it the right way? No.
Right.
Are you getting a small amount of results in a short kind of data point? Yes. But if you were to get to a different program that maybe is able to see you over more than just 1 week, maybe they're able to see you over a 3-week span, that's going to be a more accurate, quote unquote, individualized program than just a 1-day fix.
All right, moving on to the final segment of this week's episode, Connor. I was listening to a podcast, another couple other podcasts that have gone with this question. I thought it was very fascinating to argue, since we're a baseball podcast. We're, as we said in the earlier segment, a new school coaching staff. But I thought it was an interesting argument to say, as a fan of the game of baseball, has analytics ruined baseball? As a fan, not as a coach, not as a player, anything like that. As a purely just a, maybe like even like casual fan versus hardcore fan.
When you say analytics, what do you mean? When you're using the phrasing that you're using, has it ruined the game? So at what point are you, because like, I mean, I don't know when the exact time was, but when did batting average get brought in? Because technically that's an analytic. So like,
So
are you referring to those as analytics?
So I'll put this. I'll put this I'll put it in greater frame. Let's maybe in the time frame of like basically the Moneyball era.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to the Moneyball era. Because now that we're so reliant on metrics and data, has the metrics and the data made baseball a worse viewing experience?
I don't think so. I think it makes it a more competitive experience.
Okay.
And so I think when you're able to put players in the like correct positions, so like the defensive shift, right?
Right.
So originally you could go up and bring up a hitter that just only pulls the ball and they could get base hit after base hit after base hit. Like that's good. I like when guys are getting hits and stuff, but when you then look at the data and guys started shifting their infield, now those are acquiring outs. It's like, is that as entertaining as someone that kind of views the strategic part of it? Like I enjoy the strategy of it, right? Like watching the game of baseball, I like looking at the little things, the strategy that they're doing, almost where it's like if you're watching soccer,
it's a chess match.
Yeah, like if you're watching soccer, if you're just solely watching the ball, you think the ball's like always dribbling, blah blah blah. But like the extra stuff that the guys are doing on the side to set up like a play after a play after a play, for me, that is what really intrigues me, because I like trying to get inside of their brains. I like trying to figure out, like, why did they just do that? Why did they just do this? Oh, snap. Oh, they're crossing it. Now that all makes sense. And like, for me, that strategic piece is what I really enjoy watching the game. Like obviously home runs are sick. Diving web gyms, those are sick. Like, I'll give it to a pitcher when they're able to strike out a guy in a high like pressure situation. That's really cool and stuff too. But for me, like, I just really enjoying, like, I like watching coaches use the analytics to put themselves in a better position, because then now that's where the question of, well, why don't hitters just lay down bunts when the shift's on? In a certain situation, that might be the case. Carlos Gonzalez, he used to do it all the time. Like, for me, like, because then as the viewer, I'm watching, and when a guy lays down a bunt when the team's in the shift, I'm like, ha to you guys in the shift.
Right.
And then the next time the team isn't in a shift and the guy hits it to where if they would have shifted, there would have been a guy right there. To me, that's more fun than anything else. Like, I like watching that chess match piece of team versus team, coach versus coach. So my answer is I don't think so. I think it's actually made it better. I like it. I'll be honest, I didn't really like the baseball when you were able to just slide into anybody and break up double plays and ruin careers. And like, to me, like, that isn't exciting. And watching guys nowadays is more exciting, in my opinion.
Okay. Let me ask you from this standpoint. Is like, if like when you and I were kids, right? Did you ever get into debates with your friends or, just casual people around, like, who was a better first baseman? Like Todd Helton or Albert Pujols? Or is it, who's a better shortstop, Derek Jeter or A-Rod? Who's a better center fielder? Is it this guy versus this guy? Better left fielder? Or, like all these guys. But now that conversation can't be had, right? Because now there's these. Why?
Well, I mean, we still have the Kobe, LeBron.
But in baseball, but I'm saying strictly in baseball.
Okay, but I mean, we still have that debate, I think, in baseball, though.
So then we're arguing who's a better. But I'm saying, like, contemporary player. So, like, if you and I were like, who's a better first baseman, Anthony Rizzo or Pete Alonso? Mm-hmm. Right? Who's the best New York first baseman? Who's the best New York right fielder? Is it Aaron Judge or is it whoever plays right field for the Mets? I don't know, off the top of my head, at least. Who's the big dog of every position and in every position at every position on every team amongst the whole league. Mm-hmm. But you can't really have that conversation now, because now with advanced metrics like WAR or OPS plus or ERA plus or things like that, now we have these algorithms like, this guy is the best player at that position.
Yeah, and I also think it's circumstantial. So like, if you're on the team that has the best pitching staff in the league, you're not going to face the best pitching staff in the league as a hitter, because they're on your team. Right. So essentially you're facing the other 29 staffs. Yeah. Where the other 29 teams that are hitting are facing your guys. So like, and there's going to be times where, like, I don't know. Maybe you want a guy that is, maybe as a coaching staff, you guys really just love a dude that has juice at first base, but you don't care about the glove. You know what I'm saying? So there might be a difference in who you think is a better hitter or a better first baseman.
But we can quantify. Like I can justify say your first baseman, right? I can justify putting him in the lineup even though his glove is garbage because here's how many runs he creates with his bat.
But then let's say that maybe you really like defense, I really like offense.
Okay.
So you're gonna tell me that you think I don't know, someone that's really good at defense at first base, maybe they can't hit, but they're really good at first base because in your opinion, you value in your head first baseman is the defensive spot. That's where all the guys are. Every throw gets thrown essentially to first base, and so for you, you're gonna think in your eyes the best first baseman in your criteria is the best defensive first baseman. Where in my eyes, I think first base, that's a dude that just needs to pop it. I don't care about his glove. So I'm going to look at that. Now their wars might be different. Their averages might be different. Their this or that might be different. But it is going to come down to like, what do you in your eyes think is the best quantifying? Now, if we went to who's the best power hitter, then that's also going to look at I think Juan Soto can be in that topic, even though he's not going to be in the top for home runs and stuff like that. But his ability to then also take walks, I think his advantage of where he can be really dangerous there, but then he can also walk. Where some other guys that may hit the ball really far, they don't walk as much. So like, who's the best power hitter? Do you take in consideration walks? I think it just kind of comes down to the individual of what they consider or what their definition of what they're arguing. Yes, analytics may say like if you click the same exact filters on Baseball Reference, it'll pull you up and you can click where it has the top down, that whoever's at the top, that's who's best in that one category. But I think the game takes up more than just one individual category. And so that way you can still have that debate, I think.
Okay. So Jason brought up an interesting point when I asked him that question. What a good example of this is the Gold Glove this year. The American League shortstop Gold Glove. Who was I don't remember at the top of my head who it was.
I think it's Pena.
Was it Pena? Let's see. This is some great radio here.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Sorry for all the dead space here, ladies and gentlemen. Jeremy Pena was the Gold Glove winning shortstop.
At me.
Yeah, at Connor. So, but if you look at his Baseball Reference page or his Fangraphs page, he's not in the top 10 in fielding percentage. But he's number one. I think he's tied for number one. Like I think saved like 15 defensive runs this season. So by that, but while it's like Jason was saying, like, are you gonna punish a guy because he has a bad fielding percentage, even though he maybe gets to more balls than your average defensive shortstop does?
So there was actually, I can't remember who it was, but there was an infielder in the minor leagues. I think it was with the Yankees,
right?
I think, and if I recall, he had the most consecutive games without having an error. It was like over 100 game. Great radio. Most innings without an error. Air in minor league baseball. All right, we're gonna ignore that. I think it was like around 100 games or something like that. And there was an interview where they were asking the head coach of the major league organization. They're like, "Oh, so and so in your AA has had so many games without making error. Is that kind of pushing your forcing your cards to having to call him up in a little bit?" His response was, if he hasn't committed an error in that many games, he obviously isn't trying hard enough for the other balls.
Right.
And so I think that goes directly into what I was saying, is that like there's so many different little categories when you're looking at one specific thing. Like fielding percentage isn't the end all be all. It doesn't matter. Yes. But then also, like you mentioned, runs saved. That is a pretty important metric as well, because that's literally saving a run. So you have to like look at those too, because there's also the arguments that Derek Jeter was a horrible shortstop, yet the dude has multiple gold gloves. Like it all kind of comes down to, in my opinion, like what do you value as the individual when you're looking at that award, or what do you classify as a good first baseman? Like I think it all just comes down to individualistic kind of ideas.
All right. So I would say, well, let me ask you this question then, and we'll wrap up with this. Is something that, like, I was brought to my attention as well when I asked this question was, does it depend on if you're a casual fan or a hardcore fan? Because if you're a hardcore fan and like you and I are, like, we like the strategy, we like the, I'm gonna, how did Dave Roberts make this pitching change, and how's that going to affect the rest of the game, right? Who does he take out? Who does he not take out? How does the other team switch his lineup up to?
How does that affect the following game?
Exactly.
The next day?
Exactly. But then the casual fan, maybe who doesn't watch baseball until maybe the playoffs, or maybe they watch Sunday night baseball, or they watch their local team, right? But not as closely as maybe we do. But we also have a financial and a professional incentive to do that. But now they watch it and it's like, all right, so I'm going to watch a guy ground out into a shift, or there's no, the only time I see scoring is home runs and doubles, and there's a shit ton of strikeouts, not a lot of walks. There's not a lot of people on the base. There's no stolen bases anymore because there's no incentive to do it. So there's not action, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whereas someone could make the argument that in hockey or in basketball or in football, analytics and sabermetrics have improved the game, right? Because now, if you're a basketball fan, you're like, I'm going to watch Steph Curry because he's been incentivized, because analytics has told him it's more efficient to shoot a 3-pointer than it is to barrel around in the paint,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so then now scoring is up in the NBA. Same thing in football, where analytics would say, throw the ball on the early downs, you'll get more yards, you'll score more points, and that's the whole point of the sport, right? Is the game more is many points as you can score is the incentive. Same thing in hockey. Analytics will say, shoot the puck as much as humanly possible, because odds are at least one of them is going to go in. All right. So scoring's up in the NHL, scoring's up in the NBA, scoring's up in the NFL, but in baseball, scoring has gone down. Right. If you're a casual fan, you want scoring. You want to see runs. You want to see balls in play. You want to see people running. You want to see, because there's so much downtime in baseball, obviously. Mm-hmm. But you want to see that stuff. You want to see action. You want to see runs being put up. But now with analytics, and this is something we can talk about as well, analytics on the pitching side are so much more advanced than they are on the hitting side. Where a hitter, pitchers are throwing harder than they ever have. They've learned to move the ball more than they've ever moved. And hitters have only just now caught up to the speed. Yeah. But I don't know if you could ever anticipate or get adjusted to the movement.
No. And I mean, I think if we go to your question, has analytics ruined the game of baseball yet? Put the other games on a pedestal? Maybe.
I wouldn't say put them on a pedestal, but there is
allow them to grow.
It's allowed them to grow, because now people are like, I want to see like Stephen Curry. I want to see a 6-foot guy who usually shouldn't be the biggest superstar in the world, and the game that he plays is now if not the best players in the game, because he has this skill that nobody else prior to him had ever really gotten. He's one of the most skilled basketball players you watch, but then when you watch it, you go like, oh, Steph Curry's on fire. I'm gonna go watch this game. Whereas, we got a 0-0 banger going into the 8th inning. Who's going to watch that? Now, on the casual side.
I hear what you're saying, but I feel like maybe using Steph Curry as an example could kind of be a cherry pick a little bit, because you take Steph Curry away, then you have, Draymond Green has been shooting threes too. Is that pleasing to the eye? Fuck no. Like, that is horrible to watch.
Yeah.
There's a lot of other big men that are shooting threes that honestly probably shouldn't be shooting threes. And so, like, if you're looking at a specific highlight on Twitter, yeah, but like, have you watched like an entirety of a basketball game? Like not necessarily a highlight or premier basketball game? Have you just sat down and like watched the entirety of it?
I'm also a big basketball guy.
Okay,
so
there you go. So like the amount of like there is also like a good amount of like watching and you're like, what the fuck are you doing? Like there's a good amount of that. And I would say that is partly because of analytics is telling them that, like you said, to shoot more. Now, do we necessarily want Draymond Green shooting a lot more? No. Do we want Steph Curry shooting a lot more? Yes. Why? Because Steph Curry has close to, I think it's like 40 or 43% chance of making a 3-pointer, while Draymond Green is below a 25% chance.
Right. But
So
like, but in the grand scheme of is what's going to put up points, what's going to make the game more exciting, right? 43% shooting from threes versus 43% from the 2-point range. Where do the points come from?
Well, 100%. But then I think that also then comes down to if I would say Aaron Judge is the equivalent of like the Steph Curry of this past year. So if you're watching a Yankees game this year, one of every 3 games, Aaron Judge hit a home run.
Right.
Like if you hit 62 over 100, or he hit 62 home runs over 162 games, that's essentially one every 3 games.
Mm-hmm.
So like there's minimally 1 run there, unless they have more runners on. I mean that's essentially the game of baseball saying, hey, you're not going to get as many runs if you try and go hit or like single. You get 1 run out of that, but that requires then you to get 3 consecutive hits off of what could possibly be a really good pitcher that, like you said, velo's up, movement's up, all that shit. So the game of baseball has said, all right, like if we're going to get 1 pitch that we're going to be able to do damage to, let's do the most amount of damage to it, which we've seen strikeouts go up, and we can get heavy into that on a future podcast and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say it's ruined the game. I would say it's changed the game from what we originally had thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
So like, I feel like if you were a casual fan that just started watching the game of baseball and you have no preconception of what baseball has been in the past, I would say it's still a really fun game to watch. If you are like, I mean, if you were to ask any old head that played basketball before the 3-point, like I see a lot of people talk shit on what Steph Curry has done in analytics, have done in the game of basketball. There's a lot of people that are in the game that hate the 3-point and how much that they shoot it, where same thing in baseball, we have the same thing. So I think it just kind of depends on personal, like what you know, or what your idea of what baseball was versus what you're seeing it now. Has it changed? Oh yeah. Has it changed for the worst? I don't think so.
I don't think that I agree with you, but I just thought it was an interesting argument, an interesting question I heard. I was just like, maybe obviously we work in this, and the people who listen to this will probably be a little more analytically or sabermetrically driven. But like, it's just it's one of those like where we think about all the time. We're like, oh, less and less people are watching baseball. Kids aren't playing baseball as much as they used to. Or it's like, is it just the analytics and the game is boring? I'm like, the game's always been like, to the casual fan, it's been boring, quote unquote. But because there's so much dead time and there's so much.
I'll be the first one. I've sat in, and you have too, 18-inning games of scrimmages where you're like, I would rather take spoons and scoop my eyeballs out than keep watching this. So like, I'm not saying that the game
right around that 12th inning, you're just like, oh my god.
You're just like, wait, we're almost done. They're like, yeah, only 7 more innings. You're like, oh.
Yeah, you're grabbing your phone and go like, what time does the calf close?
Ah, shit, that was 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, so now you're like, god damn it, now I gotta run to the one place that's still open, because it's like 8:00 by the time you're done. And then you forget you played at 8. You were there 2 hours before the scrimmage, taking care of the field, doing BP, and then you finish the 18 innings, and then you still got to do field work. You got to go do your conditioning and all that. So it's one of those things like. College baseball, as much as glamorous as it can be, it is a fucking grind. You've really got to love it, especially in the JUCO level. Oh, the JUCO level, you really got to love it.
You really earn for every fun part there is to the game, you equally earn a part that's not as fun.
Ugh. I still remember one time I was in high school and I was doing on a travel ball team. We were out at Long Beach State, and we played this other
Dirtbags.
Yeah, the Dirtbags. We played this team that was like a San Diego team, and we played a whole 18-inning scrimmage. And there was an assistant coach for Long Beach that sat there and watched the entire thing, and it was awful.
See, like that right there, kill me.
Oh my god,
just end me, because like, and I agree, some games of baseball just aren't great. And like, if you're a casual fan and you turn on a game and it's like two like not great pitchers going up against two not great offenses, like, it's not fun. No. And I get that, but then same thing, like, I mean, I've been trying to watch the Broncos lately, and that's just even worse.
Well, that's the anti-analytics team. Hey, run the ball on first down, run the ball on third down. Oh shit, we still got 7 yards to go. All right, let's throw it.
All right, Russ, go cook. It's like, and I don't know. I don't think it's ruined it. I think the game is evolving to something that people that have been watching for a long time, is not the same, but I don't think that necessarily means it's worse.
I think at the end of the day, it just depends on how do you perceive or how do you want to watch the game. Are you the hardcore fan who wants to see the buns, all the strategy workout, or are you the casual fan who wants to?
I mean,
I just want to know the numbers and fill in the gaps.
Let me rip real quick. I think the game of baseball could be a lot better if we could get people like Alex Rodriguez out of the booth, if we could get John Smoltz out of the booth, if we could get people that carry this credential or this badge of being a former great of the game to quit talking shit on the current game. Like, that could help out so much with the ratings and getting younger players to like allow for people that actually understand what's going on to describe what's going on to the casual fan. So that way they become more than just a casual fan. Walk them through like what we were just talking about. The strategical chest moves of the relievers and the starters and pinch hitters and pinch runners. Like the dynamic of the game hasn't necessarily changed that much, and how important it is to bring in like the correct reliever on the correct day against the correct hitter, and then the other team pulling in a pinch hitter that is actually better for that pitcher. Like, there's so many things that are moving and going on in the game that if you haven't been watching, or if you're not a hardcore, person in the game, you're not going to understand what's going on. So I think that doesn't mean it's the game's fault. I think that means it's the people that are presenting the game in such a shitty way. Like, it really is. If we could get, there was the home run derby had like the stat cast on ESPN2. If we could get like a Manning cast of like Eric Sim and like somebody else to actually commentate that knows, one, what is going on in the game, but then two, that appreciate what is going on. If we could get people like that speaking and being the ones to commentate games, I think that would help grow the game so much more. I honestly hate A-Rod in the booth. I hate Schmaltz in the booth. Like, I don't know. It's just, people ask, why is the game dying? And it's like, well, it's essentially listening to people that I'm being told are some of the greats in the game talk shit about the game. That makes me feel like I'm not watching a good game.
I agree with you.
I hate A-Rod.
Screw you, A-Rod.
Fuck you, A-Rod.
All right.
You should have shot. Oh, what was it from the other guys?
Where, you should have shot A-Rod.
You should have shot A-Rod. They should have.
Right. Wrapping this up. Connor, where can the good people find you on socials?
The good, the bad, and everybody in between can find me at fast_RBI, TikTok, Twitch, Twitter, YouTube, Facebook, all that good stuff. Fast_RBI.
You can go find me on Instagram at cthomas624, or that's my Twitter, sorry. Instagram is ColeThomasFast. You can go follow Fast on Instagram at Fast Baseball. You can go follow Fast Performance at Fast Performance CO. You find us on all our pages, all the socials. Please, everyone that's watching, everyone listening, go give us a good review. Go give us 5 stars give us an up, like the video, share the video, whatever. Get us out to as many people as possible. That is this week's Fast Performance Baseball podcast. We will see y'all next Tuesday.
Bye.